Okay, construction of the Tele is pretty much complete, and we're getting ready to get into startup or setup now. But I kind of wanted to walk you guys through what I was going to be doing. I've already worked on the fingerboard, and I got all the frets level. So what I did, I've got a fret rocker that I bought from Neck Check Guitar. And I just started here, went all the way up the fretboard. Anywhere I had high frets, I used this leveling board, which is really just got like a 320 grit sandpaper on it. It's not diamond or anything. They said it's only good for 2 to 3 fret jobs. So I used that going through there, and I got all of these frets leveled. They're really good. And then I used this fret crowning tool also from Neck Check. And you can see there is a side for smaller frets and a side for larger frets. That one's a little flatter. This one's got more of a radius to it. So I used that, and you can see here on the inside of this one where it's been used. Again, this is also a 320. And I had the fretboard taped up, so I have these stainless protectors, fingerboard protectors, but I didn't use them. So the fingerboard has all been taken care of. And then I used some finer sandpaper. Not sure where I went with it. I think I used up to 1,000 and then steel wooled it, and they look really good. I also, I don't know if you can see this or not, but I did the edges as well and kind of rounded those over a little bit. Here we go. So I'll try to get in where you can see that. But I did round over the fret edges and dress them up a little bit. Here we go. Hopefully that'll show up and give you an idea how we did that one. I think you can see that one fairly well. So the fret edges have been rounded over. So as I mentioned before, assembly's complete. I have moved these saddles all the way back towards the back. So what I'm going to start with is by putting the high and low E strings on. We'll get those set. We'll set the string action on the neck. Get those two strung up. We'll probably set the pickup height off of those strings as well. Probably going to start with something like 1/16 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch on both sides. We'll see how that goes, how they look, maybe a little more. And then we will, as we string it up, we'll adjust these saddles. I'll set the intonation with the 2 E's, and I'll adjust the middle one in between. And as I string it, I'll probably have to tweak it, because again, I'm not so sure that, say, between the E and the A, even though these are compensated saddles, I'm not sure that between the E and the A that how precision they're compensated. So we'll find out as we go. I also have some radius gauges here. So I've got a 16, a 17, and a 20. Now this is a compound radius fingerboard. So we're at a 16th, or a 16-inch radius when we get up here. In fact, it starts to rock a little bit here on number 19. So we're at a 16. If I had an 18, that's what I would use, but I don't. So I've got a 17 and a 20. So I'm probably going to go with the 17, and we'll radius the bridge with the 17. If anything, it's going to have a little more radius than it needs, but I'm afraid if I use the 20, it'll be too flat, and I'll wind up fretting out on the fingerboard down there. So we'll start with the 17, we'll see what we have, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we have the 2 E strings on. Just let you look at that. I still have the toothpick stuck in the first string down here. That really helps keep that E string from popping out of those holes. So I don't know if I'm doing anything wrong here, but if I am, I'm sure I'll probably get a comment from somebody on that, but it seemed to work pretty well. So what we've done, like I said, is we've got the E's on. I've got the Allen key in here, and we've got to raise the string. You can see the action here, but we're down on the frets all the way down. Got a capo on the first fret. So what the plan is right now is to raise this up And we're starting to get a little tone out of it. And I started with it low so that as I raise this, I'll be rolling up onto new string. And it's also the reason we pulled this back. So when we adjust the intonation, we'll be moving forward again onto new string. So if we go backwards, we may wind up with a kink or something out here in the playing area. And that could weaken the string. So we're going to work on this with both of them. And we'll set the action. Again, here on the 12th fret. We're probably going to be looking for clearance of around a 1/16 of an inch, maybe 3/30 seconds. But we'll set that and we'll check back in a minute. Okay, we're nearing the end of our setup here. I want to give you a recap of what I've done so far. First off, I started off by stringing the outer E strings as we talked about yesterday. And one of the things I found when I was trying to set the string action, well, number one, I was getting pretty high on these saddles. What I think I forgot to mention, or what I didn't consider when I was doing this, was that I hadn't set the neck relief. I started with the neck flat, thinking that as I added strings, it would bring a natural curvature into it. So I realized that with only 2 strings on, I wasn't going to get the right curvature because there wasn't enough tension. If I'm not mistaken, a fully strung guitar puts around 300 pounds of pressure on a neck. And if you're not familiar with the way a truss rod and the way a neck works, you can kind of think of it like a bow and arrow. So your strings are kind of acting as the bowstring, and it's wanting to pull the neck into curvature. Well, first, this is a new neck and never been strung, so there's not going to be any residual effect in it. It's just basically going to be flat from construction and shipment and everything else. So I had it perfectly flat. I didn't think I was going to get what I wanted, so I went ahead and I strung the rest of the strings and tuned it to pitch. And what I found was there was probably a little less than 8 thousandths with a capo on the 1st fret, and I measured at the 12th fret, the relief. Yeah, holding it here and then just measuring. Actually, it was at the 8th or 9th frets where it was. It was at the midpoint. And there was only about probably 6 to 8 thousandths. I have a feeler gauge, and my smallest one was 8, and I couldn't get the 8 in without moving it. So backed off the truss rod about a 1/4 of a turn to allow more bow to come into the neck. I brought it up to about 12 thousandths, which is about where I wanted it. I retuned the guitar and went back to work on setting the string height. So let me zoom in a little bit and let you see this, but I've pretty much got these things raised, these saddles raised about all the way. So let me show you that. There you go. Sorry for jerking you around like that. Just bring that down a little bit so you can see in this view that those strings are, or the saddles, are pretty much at the top. They come up quite a ways. You can see these screws stick up. So I've got this raised pretty high. All of these are down inside. I did get it set to the let me back you back out. I did get it set to the 17 radius gauge. And again, that just goes under the strings and goes on there. And you can hear every string is muted. So all strings are in contact with it. And that took a while too, especially it was getting dusk last night in the house, and it was really hard to see the strings to get that set up. So this morning when I had some light, I was able to go in and adjust 1 or 2 of them that I still had that were out a little bit. So we've got that done. Next, intonation. These are still set back pretty far, but I did measure from the nut to the 12th fret. Back out a little more. I did measure from the nut to the 12th fret, and then from the 12th fret to the saddles. And I think, I'm trying to remember what they were, but I think they were both, they're set at about 25.4 centimeters, something like that. I used the centimeter side because I just use a cloth tape, and that seemed to be the finest. Sounds like Kitty's getting mad at somebody over there. Bear, are you antagonizing the kitties? So got that set, but let me show you now these compensated saddles. kind of what I thought would happen is happening, and hopefully I haven't knocked it too far out of tune. But I'm going to bring you in here on the tuner and let you see what I'm seeing. So this is the tuner. Get the volume up in both pickups. So you go on the E string, and we're pretty much right in tune. Go to the 12th fret, strum the E, and you can see it's pretty nuts on right there. Okay, we go to the B string, bring that up just a hair, now it's right on. And now we go to the 12th fret, and you can see it's showing that it's flat, which means the saddle needs to come forward. So what is going on, in my opinion, with these compensated saddles? Let's go back here to the saddles so you can see that. I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to show you the compensated saddles on these that closely. But what you have going on with these saddles is you've got a ridge here on the B string, here on the B string, and here on the E string. So this is in front, this is in back. I think what's going on is there's just too large of a gap between these two. I think these ridges need to be closer. And I don't think there's anything I'm going to be able to do about that. And it's that way on all the strings. You know, I had the low E in pretty well, and you know, the A is out. So there's the E pretty close. That's actually forward. That's dead on. And that's dead on. So you can see when I got the A properly intonated, the E is not. So, but I think I've got it close enough. It'll probably be something I'll have to tweak on as time goes on. Because really it's just going to be a matter of what can you live with, and there's I've got a telly book with a pretty long narrative on how to tune them with the barrel saddles. So I may go back and reference that and see what you can do. But basically it all has to do with making chords. Make a chord up here, you know, on your 15th fret. And how does it sound? And try to get it in tune. So it's a little bit out of tune here and it's a little bit out of tune there. But all in all, the chords all work together. So I may explore that a little bit more. Then the next thing I did was on the pickup height. I set them both about the same. And then when I actually put it on the amp and played, the back pickup was far louder than the front pickup. So I've got the front pickup adjusted, you know, I mean it's almost touching there. It's up pretty high. And then I've got the this one's down quite a bit. I actually may have that a little high. I may want to go look at that again. But I've got this set pretty high and this is set fairly low back. But again, I tried to get it so that the volumes would be equal on both pickups. So I think right now we're pretty well done with setup, and we'll let that ride, and we'll go ahead and play it like I said for a while. We're probably tweaking it as we go and trying to get everything the way we like it.